The work you guys are doing is immeasurable. I mean, really, it's a few years ago, I found you, probably in 2019, I found you.
Uh-huh.
And I used to follow like 100 some people on YouTube. And it's come down to like you and Franco and maybe a couple other people that I even listen to anymore, because there's so much authenticity in what you bring forth in these interviews. I just love it.
Well, I hope it's doing something.
It's doing a lot.
I think somehow or another, I got a download a few days ago, and I've gotten them before. Over the years, they've shown me like how we measure things isn't accurate. Like, lives, views, people in the community, and not to be deterred. But last week I got another one. I was telling Morgan about it, and actually I was saying, has she seen this? Has she seen? Yeah, because they were showing me how not just this was working, but how it all works. Like, for instance, your journey, like all the stuff that you and those like you go through and have gone through, the energetic transformation or the energetic transformational frequencies that you generate through these things that you think nobody is going to be affected or nobody knows about, and which is, to me, why it's so important for y'all to step up, because because you're leading the way, right? I mean, like, you go back in these communities 10 years ago, it was 90% women, and it's still about 65, Soulogy 65.
Yeah.
Which is great, but why change now?
Wow.
I mean, go for it. Like, so that's what especially with this post she put up, I guess you responded to the post because, that's pretty amazing. So the lady that just came on, she said that it was a kick in her ass. And then a lady that came on like 3 days ago, she said it in a different way. But they both said they read it and they went, I got to get on the show. And they didn't, like, their human was going, I don't want to do that. But their higher self was saying, no, you have to do this now. Did you feel the same way?
I did. It's interesting. Morgan actually reached out to me probably back in April, maybe. And then I had a session with her. It was shortly after she went to Australia. I had a session with her. And then it just kind of dropped off. I didn't hear anything from her. We had talked about it briefly, and I just like let it go because I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. And then she posted that, and I'm like, get your ass out there and just freaking do it. So here I am.
Well, it has to be a good sign, because what I've heard over the years on this show from women is that, in one way or another, they haven't felt safe to come out. So regardless of anything, to me, the fact that they're coming out, of course, I've been with somebody who's been telling me this is going to happen for 5+ years. But still, it tells me that something good is happening. I mean, there's so much talk about the bad stuff,
Yeah. I think part of it's a journey of self-love and self-acceptance. That's something that I know a lot of my female friends and I have been working on for years. I mean, and it's work.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You go through all the struggles, and, you tend to beat yourself up. You tend to take things personal, and you just, part of this spiritual journey is growing through all of that, moving through all of that, transmuting it, and then getting to a point where I am worthy. My story is worthy. My story does hold something that holds change for other people, or just a little nugget of anything. I mean, it's all valuable. There's valuableness in everything. Is valuableness a word?
Let's make it up. So did you have a traditional journey? I mean, like, a lot of people that come on the show, I woke up. I mean, I was born. I always had something. it went to sleep, or I went to sleep, or I entered the matrix and had a family and went to college and do all these things. And then you wake up and you're either, most of them come on here, there was traumas involved, relationships ending or accidents or illnesses.
Yeah.
Did you have anything like that happen?
All the above.
Yeah.
All the above. I've always been a seeker since I was a young child. I used to, back in the days before internet, ride my bike down to the library and I would check out books on witchcraft.
Really?
And here I am, this, being raised Catholic child, being sent to CCD every Wednesday, checking out books on witchcraft, trying to make sure nobody sees me in this little small town, I always knew there was something more, but I could never get a hold of it. I would do, I took Reiki classes back in the 90s. Reiki, I don't know how you say it. I took theta healing a few years ago. I'm always searching, and I feel like the culmination of everything in 2020 really kind of brought things to a head. Well, let's backtrack. 2013 really brought things to a head for me personally. I was working in a corporate job in the television industry, one of the most programmed places on earth that you can be. And it was toxic. And I ended up manifesting stage 3 colon cancer from that whole scenario.
Jesus.
And it's funny because I always kind of in the back of my head knew that was going to happen somehow. It's very, very weird. And the whole thing is still surreal. And I really don't identify with the cancer anymore in so much that it doesn't hold a place for me. I identify with the journey and the healing process of all of it. I feel healthy. I know I'm healthy. I don't need to go to the doctor and get checked because I just intuitively now know I've cleaned up my act.
Wow.
I got rid of that environment. I got rid of a toxic marriage. I am just healthy now. I'm doing healthy things. I'm following my passion. I'm following what I believe my purpose is, and it's all good.
Did you have a breaking point? I mean, was there like a D-Day, like where you just said, I'm quitting this job, I'm done?
Actually, the job kind of quit me. When I was out going through treatment, there was some distance being put between me and my employees. And yeah, so I went back and I it's just another of those intuitive knowings. I went back and I knew they're going to be gunning for me.
Yeah.
And they were. And they did.
Yeah.
And it was fine because it was cool. On the last day when they said, we're not going to renew your contract, I said, okay, got up, grabbed my purse and left. And they were like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah, they were like, what? She's supposed to have a breakdown. She's supposed to freak out.
Yeah.
But I just, that little voice in your head that says it's all good.
Yeah.
And I was in a very supportive relationship at that point. And I had offered him a few years before to reinvent himself, follow his dream. And I came back home after that, being let go. And I was just like, well, I guess I need to look for another job. And he's like, you know what? No, you don't. Why don't you follow what you love, do what you love? And he let me do that and supported me through it. So it's kind of a nice little.
That is nice. What'd you decide to do?
Photography, something I'd been wanting to do my whole life since I was a child. Finally came full circle.
Wow.
Only took me 50 years to get there.
That's okay. It took me 50 years to learn how to dance. And is that one of your pictures back behind your shoulder?
No, actually, that was taken at our wedding.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So do you do it professionally, and is there any kind of specificity to it? Like,
Well,
certain time.
I kind of re-intentioned the business this past year. I love working with spiritual practitioners. I kind of have my corporate end of my photography business, and I have my more soul-focused end of my business. And some really cool things are coming out of it.
Wow.
We set intentions with folks before we do sessions. We do a little guided meditation before the session. During the session, practitioners call in whoever they want to call in, and sometimes they show up in the images, and
Is that
blows
right?
my freaking mind.
That's crazy. But
Yeah.
that's one of the things that that's come on board the last 10 years. With the whole people. Yeah. I mean, I can recall seeing, like, this one friend of mine from Ireland sent me a picture one time. And this is just one example of many. And so she has a partner that lives in another country, and they're obviously very connected. And so she was writing me a message telling me about their herioscamos, their soul merging from different geographical locations, right? And so she sent me a picture, like where you're sitting, of her little office, and behind the chair was her partner's image. And I've seen other images.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've seen other, but you're capturing some of that too. And
Yeah,
it reminds me, there's a documentary on Netflix now. I had seen her on YouTube, but there's a lady in England that's been taking pictures like you do, but she takes them of the sky, and then UFOs appear. Like, she's been doing it like 30 years. So it's the same.
Wow.
So what kind of stuff have you picked up?
Mostly light anomalies. Like, lens flares are normal when you're shooting with the sun and all of that, but these lens flares are like next level.
Yeah.
Like, they create shapes and colors and go to places on the image where it doesn't really make sense for them to go.
Yeah.
Kathleen Haley, I think you know her.
Yes.
I did a shoot with her. She was sitting there pulling in some energy, and I was just snapping pictures, just one after another, after another, after another. Bright white light in one picture. A second later, it was clear.
Yeah.
I got a little intuitive nudge to put her in a certain spot in one picture, and these toroidal fields showed up
Right
in front of her, and it's just like mind blowing. We were shooting a session down in Sedona near the creek, and one of the gentlemen brought a Lemurian crystal and started playing with it, and I started seeing these colors coming off the crystal, and I'm like, whoa, stop, okay, do it again. And it just kept rotating through all these different colors. It would be like teal, then orange, then red, then blue. And we're looking at the images afterward on my laptop, and there's like a face in the creek behind the crystal.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen plenty of evidence of it. And then there's a Robin Redford. She takes pictures. If you go to my page, the cover photo is her picture of my spirit coming to her. This is like a couple of years ago. But she takes all these pictures, and not only do they have that distinction of an essence or essences, but they also have some I don't know what you would call it, personality to it, like a Buddha type essence, and I mean, and she's not the only one. There's lots of. I wonder, like, in your work, is do you think the images are coming from the people, or do you think they're standalone, like you're standing there and I'm here?
I feel like the stronger the person is at pulling in whatever they're connecting with, like this one gal, Anya, she was connecting with like Mother Mary and the Magdalene Collective and the pinks and yellows that just showed up in the image. I feel like the person I'm photographing is pulling them in. And I'm also getting the intuitive nudge on where to go with that,
I got you. Yeah. Wow. All these new 5D vocations are pretty cool. So
Yeah.
what was I guess just to make sure I understood it, the turning point for you was realizing the job made you sick and you were in a supportive relationship and everything. Okay. How did you, I mean, you made it sound so simple. Maybe it is, but how did you heal your body? I mean, you're talking stage 3 colon cancer. That's very serious. Not to mention, you're not even going back to the doctor because you know you're healed.
Yeah. Well,
How
I
did
did a
you?
couple years after that. I
Yeah,
did, but it was recommended you go for a number of years. And I'm like,
right,
why?
right.
Why? Because I don't subscribe to that thought process anymore.
Is that how you healed your body? I mean, how do you explain that?
I, during the whole process, I journaled it. I did a blog
Okay.
online. And strangely enough, I named it Finding Zen with Cancer.
Wow.
And why I pulled that name out of thin air was beyond me, but I think that was part of my healing process. And it was just no holds barred. Here's the ugly truth of what I'm going through. And every once in a while, I'll go back and look at it and go, wow, because I really have no memory of that year. It's just a total wash for me. But the process of writing about it was very cathartic and just helped.
Yeah. I wonder if journaling is that the one of the benefits to journaling is almost like talking to yourself, I guess. And then to share it. Did you have what kind of response did you get? Was
I
it
had people from all over the world messaging me
wow?
on it, and how they would find it, I don't know, but they would.
Yeah.
I think when you're in that state, you're seeking a lot.
Yeah.
I made a few friends online. Some of them are no longer on this earth plane, but they were guest bloggers of mine, and their stories were moving, so moving.
Hero's journey.
So yeah, it really was. I mean, this one gal had stage 4, and she just looked, she was going to go through life going through chemo. She unfortunately, wasn't able to make that happen, but she just never gave up.
That's amazing. We had a lady on here. She used to come on quite a bit. Ingrid Esme Farrar from Norway, and she had 3 bouts. She had pretty extreme, but I mean, she had I think a couple of toxic relationships, 3 bouts of cancer, or 2 or 3, but she talked about how because you mentioned you don't, I kind of like don't identify with that anymore, right? And
Mm-hmm.
she had this extraordinary recollection of how she went through it, and it was like she talked about how she created this space, and in other words, a space of love with the cancer. Like she brought that energy up, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. She's amazing. You're
Uh-huh.
amazing. So and like so, could you hear your body telling you everything was okay? I mean, like that's a pretty serious thing. Were you scared?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I had the best doctor ever. He was some old German guy. We were down in Sarasota bellying up to a bar on a Saturday to have some Bloody Marys, and my phone rings and it's this doctor.
Hmm.
And that's where I got the news. I mean, you know how a lot of times they'll be like, oh, we need you to come in. We need to talk about the results. It's like, he didn't mess around. He's just like, here's it. Here's what's going on. I had family history too. I lost a dad to colon cancer and my mother's brother to colon cancer. So he wasn't messing around. He's like, you got to come back in here. We need to do a colon resection, and then we need to get you with an oncologist. And I just sat there with my jaw hanging open for like 5 minutes, looking at my husband going, I couldn't even say it. I couldn't even say the words. I just felt it felt so unreal. And then it was almost as unreal having to tell my kids about it too.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3. They're all adults now.
Yeah. Yeah, I have 6. And I'm thankful they're all adults. That must have been hard to tell your kids.
It was, and I think they weren't quite sure, what to do with it. What do you do?
Right.
They were very supportive, but one was pretty young. He was like 11, and the other ones were in their late teens, early 20s. So,
Wow.
yeah. But you just do what you need to do. It's just, everybody acts like, oh, how could you get through that? Well, you just do it. When you're in it, you just go, okay, what's forward? And just move forward and just keep plowing ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. Although it's obviously different circumstances, different traumas. I didn't have the physical thing, but that period for me that you had, was like a constant communion was developed, because it sounds like that's what happened with you as well. Were you, in that year that you can't remember, were you connected pretty much all the time?
I feel like I wasn't even in my body, and I don't know where I was. I had a lovely friend who supplied me with some edible plant medicine to get me through some chemo. And it freaked the shit out of my husband, because I would, at first I didn't know how to dose it. So I took a little too much and ended up sleeping like 2 days, which was fine because it was miserable. But yeah, I just felt like, it's like they say sometimes with traumas, people check out. I feel like somehow part of me checked out during that whole process.
Like disassociation.
Yeah. Or like maybe, my soul really wasn't there during that time. Maybe I was somewhere else doing something. And my body was just going through the motions of the healing.
Yeah, I wonder about that, because I've heard other people say that, and then if you think about the disassociation that occurs during trauma, like I've heard people talk about like sexual molestation, or where they just leave their body, and in that process they end up actually connecting, because they've left, to aspects of themselves, and in many cases they start to develop a relationship, and it helps them. Do you feel like that? And to me too, what I find strange about it too is, people talk about walk-ins. What you're describing, and what I've heard some other people kind of allude, is it's almost like a walk-out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. And I almost wonder if I did have a walk-in during that time. Yeah, I talked with a couple people about that who thought that maybe that was a possibility. But yeah, after it was all over, it was just like full steam ahead for me. It was like, okay, get that purpose figured out. You're on a mission, go for it. And it's still unfolding. It's still evolving. It's, and it always will be. And that's what I think makes it interesting.
Yeah, that's right. It is what it is today, right?
Yeah.
Because it could change tomorrow. Do you have a sense of what you mentioned mission, and a lot of people mention mission, but,
yeah.
and I think it's pretty safe to say there's many missions within the mission. Yeah. But do you have a sense of what yours is?
Where I feel it's going right now, and this kind of all has culminated this year is I love my writing, I love my photography, and I've always struggled with how can I marry the two together. And this magical thing came about where, well, the past year, like a lot of people, I've been spending a lot of time in nature, and I've been making a lot of deep connections when I'm out there. And that's where it came to me, where I just married the words. Okay, let me rewind here. It's a connection with my higher self to another person's higher self. And what I do is, like, say, Todd, you were interested in what I have coined a soul script. I would ask you permission to connect with your higher self. My higher self would get pinged when the connection was ready to be made. And I would sit down and basically transcribe or channel whatever was coming through that your higher self wanted you to know about right now. And it usually comes in the form of some beautiful prose or poetry or a fairy tale or something like that. And then there's always a supportive image that goes along with it that has some meaning to it. Like I did one the other day for a gal, and my mind tends to get in the way when I do these because I'm still pretty new to it. And I'm writing it out and I'm going, this is really stupid. She's not going to like this. And da, 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 da. It's just like, step aside. We're going to keep moving forward with this. And as I'm writing it out, I was told to put an image of a sunset with it. A sunrise with it. And I'm like, okay, because my logical mind's going, that really doesn't make much sense, but I know enough to just get out of my own way now and just do what I'm being led to do. And I put it together and I gave it to her, and I come to find out that she had recently changed her name. Her name means sunrise. She was just, the soul script talked a lot about her stepping into her own and following her calling and passion. And she was just having that conversation with her boyfriend on that same day. So it's just like, okay, now I've figured out a way to marry the images and the words together. And as I dig into it deeper, it's not just about that. It's about that connection to the higher self. That's what I've been able to find this past year, is that deeper connection to my higher self, really being able to grab hold of that relationship and trust it and let it lead me and take me through what the journey that I'm on. And that's what I would like to bring to other people through the soul scripts, through whatever means possible. Because I just feel like so many people right now are feeling lost and disconnected, don't really know what ends up, don't even know what the truth is anymore, and are missing that connection. They don't know how to make it.
Did you go through that? Did you go through, I don't know what the truth is anymore, when this happened 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, that was a good kickoff point for that, because I put 30 years into that business. I loved it in the beginning, and then I went and got into management, and that's when it started to kind of lose its luster for me.
Yeah. Just ride that horse till it drops.
Yeah. And then at that point, I was the sole provider in our family. So I had pressure to keep going, keep that income coming in. So at that point, it wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
I had to do it. I felt like I was trapped.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the previous show, about how everybody's subservient to the patriarchal.
Yeah.
Because we talk about the masculine versus the feminine, not verse, but, the two different paths. But, and obviously what's up right now with her coming out and speaking is, bringing awareness to the suppression, or greater awareness to the suppression of the feminine energy. But the masculine was subservient too. And all those people in that corporate world, they're all serving the man, so to speak. They don't say serving the woman. The saying is serving the man. Did you have to break through any any fractures in the feminine and the masculine? I
I knew you were going to ask that.
didn't know.
I maybe I told you to ask me that.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like I lost, and I still am not sure I'm in touch with my feminine self. I just feel like all those years in that industry really like made me overly masculine in a way. I'm very much, I don't know. I feel like my persona carries way more masculine than feminine. And I look at that sometimes and try to go, how do I get in touch with that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have this dynamic of the feminine, the energetic, and the physical representations of it, which are primarily women. You have this dynamic being introduced into the field of where she's expanding her throat chakra. So that has to mean that some level of something had to be emptied from the container, so to speak, in order for her to feel supported and to come out and start speaking. I don't know if like, because we all know women who went into the workforce, many of them breadwinners, who did the same thing that you're talking about. They just through default to conform and to survive and to be had to take on these characteristics. So that's probably a good subject to
Yeah.
dive into these next few weeks, is how, like what you brought up, like how do you, because if you're talking about how do I get in touch with my feminine, then that would obviously lead to the same thing, which is to remove some of the false persona, which in your case, like you said, you're aware that it's some masculine characteristic or distorted masculine characteristics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on myself. I mean, as far as being a mama,
Mm-hmm.
I feel I got that end of the divine feminine down because I'm a fierce mama. But yeah, I just feel like I carry way more male energy, and I don't know why.
Well, I can tell you, you exude a lot of femininity, and and and
Oh,
and
thank you.
this more importantly to me, that this femininity that's coming out now, like with the purpose of her post, and that I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, it's like looking in a mirror. We look in a mirror at ourselves and we notice everything, right?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
don't even see what we see. I mean, it's like we see every little wrinkle, and maybe that's what you're feeling, because we are hard
yeah,
on us. We have been
yeah,
hard on ourselves, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's leads circles back to that journey of self-love. You know, um, I can appreciate myself now, and I can actually look at my gifts and go, they are gifts. I'm good at what I do. I mean, before it would be like, I can't say I'm good at what I do. That
Yeah.
means, I got some huge ego or something. But we're all given something that we're good at and that we should share with the world, and that's not ego. That's just like being who you are, stepping into your truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we're going to be open to all the things we don't know we are, you know what I mean? Because of what we think we are. In other words, being open to anything. And why wouldn't we be open to our potential? I
True.
mean, it certainly seems to be headed that way. We just had a conversation with a lady, and she's talking about her and her partner having light body intimacy
Wow.
that's felt by the body. I mean, Morgan and I have had this happen. I mean, there's all kinds of things happening all over the world that are exhibiting evidence of this transformation, whether it be however you want to, carbon to crystalline, or whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. But And I think behind it all, the way I see it, is this wave of you guys, ladies, coming. You're here. It's not even coming anymore. It's here. It's happening.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a relationship that you got out of when you woke, or when you reawoke, and then you mentioned another one. I think it's another one. How much of a role did the relationships have for you, and I think probably even more specific in terms of your um, perspective on masculine and feminine within yourself and others? I mean, were they? How did they teach you, or what did they offer you?
Well, my first marriage, the guy that I had my children with, I was very much in the masculine role in that because I was the breadwinner.
Mm.
I actually did for him what I did also for my previous husband. When our third child was born, a little bit of a surprise. He was really sick when he was little.
Mm.
And one of us needed to stay home with him. It just wasn't going to fly if we didn't. And I made more money. So I just kind of threw it out on the table and said, hey, if you want to stay home with him, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
Mm.
And we figured out a way to make it work. And kind of the deal that we cut at the time was, if you want to reinvent yourself, because he didn't like his job at the time, by the time our youngest was in school, then you can transition into that new career. But that never happened.
Mm.
I always seem to be, and I take, half the responsibility for everything that went wrong in that relationship. For a long time, I carried a lot of victim consciousness and anger and resentment. And now it's like, I played a role in that too. I'll accept my responsibility for it, as, hard as that is to come to terms with sometimes. I'll do that. And anyway, he just kind of let the ball drop and never got around to being motivated enough to move himself forward into that new career.
Mm.
So it was just kind of the beginning of the downward spiral of a lot of other things that compounded on that. But, I had to be the man, so to speak, in that relationship and go, let's get moving here. We made some deals here. What's going on? I'm bringing home all the money. I'm taking care of everything, But it is what it is.
Yeah. But so you ended up in another relationship? Is that what
we ended up divorcing, and it was a very long divorce. It probably took a good 1.5 years, 2 years to get resolved. In the meantime, I ended up finding my high school sweetheart on Facebook, of all places.
You can't make this shift up, man.
Yeah.
So how long had it been since y'all seen each other?
28 years.
Are you kidding me?
No. He was like, oh my gosh. I was crazy about
How
him.
long have y'all been reconnected? How long
11 years now, since 2010.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like a godsend, because if I had to go through treatment with my ex, I don't know that I would want to come out the other end of that.
So okay, I had the chronology wrong, but the first one ended early 2000s, and then 11 years ago, before the stage 3 colon cancer.
Right,
3 years before you reconnect with this guy. Do you feel like that there was any connection or correlation between the two of you reconnecting and anything that you might have, any space you might have created in your own life? I'm really speaking more energetically than I am that you went from, you shut that one, you got closure on that one, then another one came in. But were you doing shadow work then? Were you working on yourself then?
I really wasn't, because I was still caught up in the corporate wheel, the hamster wheel, dealing with all of that, managing up, managing down. Yeah, it wasn't until after, well, yeah, it was after the cancer. I think that is when it really kicked in. I started to do a few things back then. I realized I went to something called Landmark. I would also be a junkie for seminars. I'd read books, I'd go to seminars, I'd take classes. And that's where I learned I was holding on to a lot of victim consciousness. And that like hit me upside the head. I did not see myself as that person, but I totally was that person. I was just
Wow.
holding on to, this is being done to me, and this is being done to me, and this is being done to me. It's like, whoa, a carpet was yanked out from under me at that seminar. And I was like, holy shit, I gotta get that under control.
Well, I mean, how could, I mean, really, how could any of us not be in victim consciousness? Like,
Yeah.
that's just a prerequisite to, you can't even function unless you're a little kid and, you know, and you're 2, 3, 4 years old and you haven't been exposed to the human condition, let's just say. But you, I mean, like, where are you at with victim consciousness? I mean, it sounds like you developed a relationship years ago with taking it on and taking.
Yeah. Well, I look at things now and I go, okay, what's my role in that?
Yeah.
Did I invite that in? Did I bring that on myself? You know, and a lot of times I can see the twist in it where maybe it's really not a bad thing. It's going to turn into a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like I've worked through that. I mean, do we ever work through it completely? I don't know. We'll get to that point, I think. But, you know, there's always little surprises popping up lately.
I think there's a lot of them because everything's more magnified. It's in our face every day.
Yeah,
and we're really what it looks like to me, you know, I mean, it's just so much going on, but it's like victim consciousness is fading away each day that goes by as a choice. We're not going to be given that choice. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting there thinking about whatever we think about, and it was like, came in like in big letters, victim consciousness is narcissistic. And I thought, oh, that's weird. What does that mean? And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Even if you're unconscious, that frequency of victim consciousness carries a me first, you know, kind of attitude.
Oh yeah.
You
Why
know
me?
I mean? Yeah. So it's I don't know, maybe it's even, well, I guess maybe it is the death program though, because that implies a victim, right? Somebody died or something died. You and your partner reconnected. So 3 or 4 years go by, and then you get hit with the phone call when you bellied up to the bar.
Yeah.
I like that part. That was funny. So you had somebody with you going through this. And then, of course, there's so much emphasis now on the individualization, the individual responsibility, self-reliant, you know what I mean? The self-contained, self-empowerment. Was it a more of an individual experience if you had to choose one or the other, or was it you and your partner?
He was there and he was supportive. But this, I guess, maybe is another masculine trait of mine. When I don't feel well, it's like, let me just go off into the woods and be sick by myself, you know, kind of feeling. A lot of it all involved me. I had to heal me. I had to work on me. I had to get through this chemotherapy process. And if I had to do it all again, I would totally not do chemo.
Really?
But at that time, I didn't have the awareness that I have now. So, you know, it was very much a singular journey. Although he was there offering support wherever and whenever he could, it still was all on me.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know if that's a masculine thing or a soul thing.
Maybe.
You know, I mean, like, because at the end of the day, that's really how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't do for others what they,
Right.
or, like I used to be told, you can't miss a step on the soul highway. Like there's no shortcut,
Yeah.
but that seems to be, and you talked about, working with practitioners, because I've heard a lot of them say in the last year and a half how their enterprise had changed. People aren't coming back over and over and over. They've been taken, in one respect, they've been taken to a place where they understand that they open the door and then that's all they have to do. So it's like a one-off. And then also they've made remarks about how people are more expansive that are walking in the door the last few months,
Yeah, I can see that too. I would go see a lot of practitioners, and I eventually, my higher self is like, you can do all this stuff for yourself. You don't need to go seeking it. And I was like, oh, wow. It was just like, oh, I need to see this channel, and I need to go get this healing, and I need to go do this. And it was like, you can do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And it just never dawned on me. And it's like, gosh, yes, I could.
Serial client.
Yeah.
Right? Serial client. Which the intention of it is pure.
Yeah.
I want to get better. I want to grow. I want to expand. But yeah, I think a lot of people are reaching the point, because I've heard a lot of people say, I don't know if it's you or the lady before mentioned it as well, about they don't read books anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of, not saying that you don't read books, but I'm just saying that there's something going on with the transfer of information that's not operating, just like everything else isn't operating the way it used to, like the telepathy.
Right. And even when you like I have a friend who's an energetic healer, and it's almost like you don't go there to get taken care of. You go there and you need to co-create.
Yeah.
You need to work with that person as much as that person's working with you. And I kind of feel like that's where things are going too.
Yeah, the way I see it, and then of course most of this is from working with Morgan in the early years, basically doing sessions. So they open up to their maximum, a field, and then they invite you to do the same. It's a lot like what you said at the beginning, how you ask them, you invite, they open up as much as they can, then your higher self gets pinged, and then everything starts.
Right.
That I've heard so many of them basically describe that as how it works, which if that's how it works, then the modality in the process is almost secondary, right? It's that connection.
Well, yeah, it's almost like we're a springboard too. It's like, okay, I need this little nudge in some direction.
Yeah.
Boom, you're the springboard. Get me connected with my higher self. Oh, right. I can make that connection. I can do that. Now I can help myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a lot like what Morgan does with the zero pointing. It's all about, teaching to fish.
Yes. Well, and the great thing about that zero pointing is what's the old saying? What you're looking for is right in front of your face.
Yeah.
You start making lists about mother and father and
oh my God, that sucks.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? I mean, like
it's
I said,
crazy.
It changed my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a lot of time. She came over knowing things I didn't know.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like knowing about ascension, knowing about divine union, all this stuff. And so I didn't understand what the motivation was. But once I let go of something being presented to me that I was resistant, because whether I didn't think I needed it or whatever, but once I let go and started to, it didn't take minutes. And you know this. I mean, like you make a list of that and or one of those, and then you start to go, like you said, like where did I do that? What did I do to create that? Well, you know what I mean? It's such a human thing, I guess, is why I think it's so effective, because it requires the human to be fully present at all times. And it's simple. Some things are simple but not easy, right?
Yeah, and it leads to such a beautiful unfoldment.
Yeah.
and you work through it.
Yeah. And it's a battle, because once you open that Pandora's box open, you can't shut it, even if you want to.
Right.
Yeah. I remember a couple of, um, I can remember a couple of people. They were friends of mine or of ours that happened to have a session with her. And they went through those first day, like 2-day week or whatever of the step one. And because of the instantaneous, irrefutable, unarguable, you know, change that you immediately start to feel in these epiphany, they both said, "Oh, I'm done. I got this." Like, "Oh, wow, this is it. Okay, that was easy." And then 6 months later, both wrote back and said, I tried to shortcut this and it didn't work, and this is what happened. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of the story, but it was interesting how what they discovered due to their own resistance by what they uncovered, right? And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of that zero pointing to me, because it is
Wow.
such a human, keep you honest kind of no BS, brutal honesty of the soul kind of thing. And it's totally personal. It's totally personal.
Yeah.
There's nobody else, right? So your partner, it's so fascinating talking, because it's mostly women, but I love talking to, and I'll ask them about their partner. And there were a lot of them, 80%, 90% will say, well, they're not in these communities and they're not like woke by some people's definition, but they got it. They just don't know it.
Yep.
And they talk about a couple of things. They talk about, one, they allow them to do whatever they want to do, basically. And that they have that thing where they just get it somehow, but they don't follow the conventional path. Like, let's say this is the conventional, you know what I mean? How is yours? Like, for instance, like how did they handle your vocation and that type of thing? Are you able to?
Oh yeah. I talked to him about it, and he just kind of goes, "Well, it seems harmless." Okay. But he also, I see a side of him. He is so intuitive. I swear to God, sometimes he reads my mind, and he will just say what's going on in my brain. And I'm like, get the hell out of there. What are you doing? What do you mean? I just know you. We've been around together for so long. And I'm like,
I love how
you're in my head.
I love how women imitate their partner.
But he has gifts. I can see his gifts. He's just not in a space of being ready to go there. He's very much, go to work, make the money, do the things.
See, somebody on the last show, because I had made a comment about both genders being subservient, and she said, "Oh, I'd like to hear more of that about the masculine." But that's what I'm talking about, and I didn't want to, take time from the show because it was about the guest. But that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't look the same, because a man, traditionally, stereotypically, is the suit or the work clothes, and he goes to work and he provides and he holds up the world. Now, it may seem like some kind of power move, but it's actually very subservient, and that's how a man feels. That's how I felt. 23 years and always holding everything up, and so that it's not the same type of suppression that the feminine energies dealt with, but it's still subservient. And anyway, I don't want to get off on a subject, but I wanted to ask you, because there's a lot of emphasis right now, obviously, on the feminine energy expanding the throat chakra and the good pressure and the good stress that's bringing to the realm. But there's also the effect of that energetic progression onto the masculine energy, right? So, like, I think, like, you know what I mean? So, like, you and your partner, to me, is a potential little laboratory session.
Oh,
in other words, what I was getting at is, I think there's a lot of men out there like him or this world would be shit a long time ago. I mean, really bad, right?
Right.
Especially now, because there's no way that this force of these women that are driven by the individual woman, they couldn't be doing that unless they felt comfortable and safe enough to do it and supported enough to do it, right? So now here you have this, and we'll just use your partner, and you can go as deep as you want or shallow as you want. Have you seen, because there's been some talk about it, that this good pressure put onto the masculine energy, which is creating havoc in his reality because his power is being sucked away in a good way. You know what I mean? But, and I've heard a lot of, particularly women, say there's a lot of men struggling right now. They don't know what's going on, but they can feel it, kind of thing. Are you experiencing any of that?
Totally. He's kind of along for the ride. During 2020, before 2020, we had this dream. Let's get an RV. Let's live in an RV. Let's travel a country. Blah blah blah. Can you see where I'm living right now?
I thought that was an RV because my friend had one that looked similar to that, very nice. And so how do you like that?
Well, it was so weird because halfway through 2020 being the shit show of the shift show that it is, we looked at each other one day and go, let's do that RV thing now. And he's like, yeah, let's do it now. And within a month, we're living in a freaking RV. It was just like that. So we left the coast, the Gulf Coast, which we love, and moved inland, which we said we would never do.
Now, where did you live on the Gulf Coast?
We were just up the road from St. Pete in a little town called Ozona.
I know where that is.
Yeah.
I lived in Tampa 3 times. Of course, we were in St. Pete Beach, January through May last year?
Yeah. So we did that, and we're going to start looking for land. He's starting to buy books on aquaponics, hydroponics.
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at cultivating this whole little community, and he's like, yeah, and you can have retreats there, and you can do your soul things there, and I'll do my aquaponics. And I'm like, who is this guy?
Wow.
But it's
can you
the whole standing in my own, because I used to be very pick. You should do this. You should do that. Try this, try that. It just doesn't work. And finally it sunk in, just do your own freaking thing. Stand in your own place. Be your own person. Don't worry about what he's doing.
Yeah.
And with that, he's starting to unfold now into this little different reality where he is thinking, we're just jiving on the same wavelength of what we want to do and what our goals are and what we want to see. And we want to kind of be quasi off the grid and, have this little community. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
But
well, okay. So, no, I think this is helpful because it shows me, and I'm just sitting here, I'm a curious mind, but it sounds to me like there is a lot of telepathy, and that one of the possibilities of a incarnated male, we're talking traditional, we're talking most of the case, we know that there's a lot of different exceptions, but for the most part, that they could actually make this transformation without a dialogue.
Oh yeah.
Just strictly based on if I look, and I don't know all the details, but what I can pick up, your energy, it's the same thing. Your energy I know y'all talk, but is having an effect on him that doesn't require, hey, let me tell you about this and let me tell you about that. And now the other thing I love about your example, I'm really big on this, is the quantum aspect. So if the science is accurate, and I believe it is, whether you call it quantum or whatever, but whatever I'm looking at comes in here, and how I kick it out is what happens. So now here's an example, and I don't know if it's true or not. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So here's an individual, divine feminine, in a relationship who's making this constant, graduated, steady, deliberate change and evolvement and expansion. And then there's the partner, and he's being affected by you.
Yeah.
And and again, this is not about people to me. It's about, how does this energy work? So like, he is inspired by you, essentially.
Right.
Morgan has a friend, and he is married to another friend of hers, and he told, so the woman went out of town for a few days. Morgan was staying at the house, and I think the night before the lady came back, she ran into him in the kitchen, and I don't know what the conversation was, but in the conversation he said, "I miss her, and I see the world through her eyes."
Mm.
And you know what I mean? So like, I can see where, like you said, he's in it for till the end. Like he's you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see, are you seeing like where you can go, I've made this change, and then you see it in him? Like you see some type of,
Yeah. I do. The past year and a half has been super dramatic. I mean, and I think it's kind of a yin and yang. We're feeding off of each other too. Like, I don't think he ever expected me to live in an RV full time. I think he was like, she's never going to buy that. But yet here I am, and I'm doing it, and it's not a big deal.
really?
So I think that kind of surprises him. But he is gone 15 days out of the month too. So that helps, giving us each a little bit of space and away time, which I think, is always good for couples too.
Absolutely.
Because there are times where I just need to go off in the woods and just scream and do some shit. And I don't want him anywhere near me, you know, and then I come back, and then I'm like better. I'm healed and ready to go again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. Well, and I think that's one of the many, many things that's changing is, we talked about it before she went back to Australia, because we take it pretty seriously, what we do. We try to be, like all of us, we try to be as authentic as possible and serve. And we were sensitive to what people might think, but we had to be confident in our guidance and our devotion and commitment and everything. And that whole, I need to understand this thing, how these things, I don't know about you, but like, these things will come in, you get past the resistance, you go and do it, and then they tell you how it all works and why it happened. They never tell you before, they always tell you after, right? After you make the commitment and take the plunge. But what I was saying is that, so like in that example, not to speak of us, but just to say how things are changing in our connections and even our communication and everything, all of us, that in fact, our connection is expanded. Not to say there wasn't an adjustment period and there wasn't initiations and so on, but that doesn't fit the mold, right? It doesn't fit the mold for you 50-ish and your partner to jump in an RV and just start winging it. And this is happening all over the place. But again, it's not conventional, but there's a lot of people, particularly women, doing unconventional things right now. And that's, as an energy, that's very encouraging to me, I think.
And listening to that calling and following through on it. Like, I would have never have left the water. I love the water. But now I'm like an hour and something inland, and I'm like, I can't imagine being over there, which is weird. So I know there's something at play here that I haven't quite unwrapped. Same with the whole land. We're here now. sure, we take the RV out and have fun with it and everything, but we're also looking for some land to follow through on that dream. But we're sitting here going, we need land, but we're being told it's not time yet. So then I'm wondering, well, is the land even going to be here? So, you know, a lot of that is also just letting it, trusting the pings that you're getting, and also just, you know, letting the truth out there. This is what we're being drawn to do. This is what we're going to do. Just like you guys, you know, you're put it all out there.
Yeah.
Because anymore, being inauthentic isn't going to serve you.
No.
You know, everybody's been screwed up. Everybody's had problems. Everybody still deals with crap, you know.
Yeah.
You can't hide it.
No, you can't. It's everyone's being brought down to an even playing field. And of course, you know, I'm a big believer. You can't find oneness with 10, 100, 1,000 people until you find it with another.
Yeah.
That's why one of the things I feel about these relationships, the potential of these relationships, is to anchor a more pure, you know, frequency of pure love, right? Like Trinity, you know, serving self, the other, and the universe equally with each thought, word, and action, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be. We talked a lot yesterday about this type of thing in our interactions with others and with each other, and some pretty raw stuff going on right now. I mean, in terms of the what would you call it? The unmaskings that we're all going through.
Yeah.
God, amazing. Well, I'd love to get together with you again sometime. And if you and your partner ever want to come on and talk about your journey, we're always here to support you.
I'll see if he's up for it.
He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation.
Right.
Exactly. And we're all here just trying to learn and help each other. And, you know, sans the bullshit. As much as we can, anyway. You're a beautiful lady. You're very brave, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Coming in and sharing space with us. Yeah, and honoring us with your presence.
Thank you.
If you get up around Fort Smith, Arkansas, give me a holler.
Hey, I want to get up there and dig for crystals one of these days.
It's right down the road. We got a bunch of friends.
I know.
2 hours away in Hot Springs. We got a bunch of friends. Well, I know we know quite a few people that live over there. Kathleen is one of them. Yeah. And
I hear that's good Sasquatch territory too.
That's what I understand it is. I think, you know, Arkansas is an amazing portal that I think is reemerging or something's happening. But yeah, there's some power points over here. It's not just Hot Springs. It's Eureka Springs, and then even where I'm at, where we're at here. Yeah. So yeah, but if you come this way, let me know.
I will do that.
We'll reach out to you again. Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you and everybody else for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every day, miraculously. It's just part of the fairy tale. But thank you, and thank you for your part, and everybody else.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace out. We'll see y'all in 50 minutes. Last show of the day.